I didn't do anything. No, don't hurt me, please. Don't hurt me.
Shut up. You just keep your mouth shut. I'm the boss around here. What did I tell you?
I didn't do anything.
I want to kill you.
Please don't hurt me, please.
Mommy! Mommy! Mommy!
Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Mommy's gonna take you away to find a place where we'll be safe from all of this. Hush, little darling, don't say a word. Daddy might get real mad if he heard, but there must be a better life away from this.
Every 12 seconds, a woman is beaten by her intimate partner or a person she loves. In fact, domestic violence is the single greatest cause of injury to women, requiring more medical treatment than rapes, muggings, and auto accidents combined. The FBI estimates that 1 out of every 2 women will be physically abused at some point in their lives by men with whom they live. Your sister, your mother, your daughter may be at risk. Though men are subject to domestic violence as well, they account for only 5% of the victims. 90% of domestic violence abuse is witnessed by children. Last year alone, over 4 million children watched scared and helpless as their mothers were beaten. Children who witness violence can grow up believing that violence is a reasonable alternative to solving problems. 60% of children from violent homes become abusive or abused adults. This cycle must be broken.
You must find the strength to break away so you can begin to live again. So you can begin to live again.
The history of my abuse started when I was a child. My father was an alcoholic. I can remember many, many nights laying in bed, listening to him beat my mother, listening to him beat on the other family members. Many times sitting at the supper table and afraid to eat, afraid to use the right utensil, afraid to get smacked just for having your elbow on the table.
Abuse to me started very early in a form where I was molested as a child. And because of that, I felt unclean and unworthy. So I set out to find somebody, I guess, that in my mind loved me, but subconsciously I guess that abused me.
My husband came from an unloving family. His mother is very domineering, his father very passive, and so he tried twice as hard to be a strong man and to make up for that.
I think I was predisposed early in life because my mom is the dominant figure in the family, and my father was very submissive, and I used to hate that. Watching my mom dominate everything, and I said I never wanted a man like that. I wanted me a strong man, an outspoken man, because I identified that with being strong, being outspoken and all that. And on the other hand, with my husband, his father was the dominant one, and his mother was the little mousy kind, and which made my husband disrespect his mother And a lot of that got reflected in my life, our life together.
The difference between the way men and women are programmed in society contributes greatly to the existence of domestic violence in our communities. Men are taught to be not be afraid, not to be lonely, but they sure are taught that they can be angry. And we teach them to be aggressive and powerful and go for what they want. We teach them that in the classroom. We teach them that on the football field. We teach them that by television. We teach them that in the military. They're taught to go for it all and to be in control no matter what. At the same time, we teach our young girls that they can't be angry, but they can be scared and they can be lonely. To get what they need through indirect means, we teach them to be caretakers and nurturers in relationship and to be responsible for the relationships around them.
You were taught when you're married, you stay in a marriage, no matter what, you know, and you, what the man says goes, and my stepmother showed me by taking the beatings that she took from my father that this was a way of being, this was a way of life.
Through the years, I always thought that that was what life was supposed to be, how marriage was supposed to be between two people. Constantly afraid, constantly scared.
I felt like he needed me. He'd been through some rough times, and my love could carry him through life without any trouble. And that's not the way it ended up. It was verbal and emotional abuse.
When there came a point in time in my mother and father's marriage when she just couldn't take it anymore, she decided to leave him. She packed up me and my younger sister, and we tried to run away, but unfortunately, the next morning he found us. And I distinctly remember waking up, and to this day will never forget, the sound of gunshot going off and glass in my face and hair. And I just felt like I was paralyzed, like I was afraid to move, because I didn't know if I had been shot.
A child is 1,500 times more likely to be battered themselves if there's battering going on in the relationship. And we found out that the way to keep our children safe is to keep them in homes where there's not violence. The best way to keep a child safe is to keep their mother safe.
With the police department, we've always had domestic violence situations. The officers have arrived on the scene. A lot of times there's a lot of trouble within the family. In those first years, we had really no alternative. We took the family to the police department where they were forced to spend the night sitting on hard benches outside the booking area, or we dropped them off at some friend or relative somewhere in the neighborhood. But the alternatives were scarce.
Every time we got into an argument, he would take the baby from me. And I knew how physically abusive he was at this point in my life. Before I was pregnant, while I was pregnant, he would always try to get me to fight him and tell me to come on. He knew that I shouldn't and dare try to hit him back because he was stronger and bigger than me. And so I would just basically have to sit and listen. And that's what he would do to me. He would sit me down and make me sit and listen to him and what he had to say. And I wasn't allowed to talk.
The first incident of violence, I would say, was when he pulled a knife on me for dancing with someone that we both knew. That led to, I guess, a sort of an imprisonment that I couldn't talk with anyone or see anyone that he really didn't know.
There was a carnival going on, and I wanted to go with my husband. And he told me we were going together, and then one of his relatives came down, and then that took my place in the car, and I wanted to go. And because I wanted to go, he made sure I didn't go. He took telephone cords, and he tied me up. My feet, my hands. And I was there all day.
Just as the scene of the gunshot going off and glass in my hair and face, I will never forget the night that he beat my head in the floor so severely that after 3 days of having a headache that just would not go away, I went to the hospital and I discovered I had a hairline fracture in the bottom of my skull. And I was so scared. I just told the doctor that I had fallen down the stairs and hit my head because I was so ashamed and so scared of what he would do to me.
And finally, when he started taking my children and choking them up on the wall till their lights went out, and beating my little boy, holding him up the arm, beating him because he wet himself, it was time to get out. And I didn't tell anyone that I planned to leave. And somebody at work told me about domestic violence shelter. That they took your whole family, your children, and I didn't have to just save myself, I could save us all. So I got 4 bags of clothes and left 19 years of possessions, because that's all that was left. And my children, and I ran.
He put the gun to my head and he kept clicking it and just kept clicking it, and I don't know why it didn't go off. And I don't know what, I can't remember really what happened, but he wound up shooting me twice in my leg. And when he shot me, I had my child in my hand, in my arms, and I fell back and he took him. And he ran out the door, and he said, if you try and follow me, I'll kill him.
And I think that's the one thing that I would like to share and say to other women, is don't let it get to that point, and don't ever believe that it's not ever going to happen again, and if he says he's going to do something, he will. And that they can even go to the other extreme. You know, you think you love this man and that he loves you in a certain way, but if they won't even admit or even take blame for any of the responsibility for anything that they've done, and they constantly blame you, and you believe it, and you start going crazy in your mind, and something inside of you tells you, no, you're not, and that it's time to do something about it, and that you've got to get out, and you know about a place that you can go, then that's what you need to do. Take the steps, no matter how hard, no matter how afraid, and the doubts that go through your mind, telling you that you can't do it. You can, and the hope is there. I'm still alive, but I'm still fighting for my children, too.
There is a place where you can get away, so you can begin to end the pain. You must find the strength to break away, so you can begin to live again. So you can begin to live again.
The Domestic Violence Shelter began as a community-wide grassroots effort, thanks to a dedicated staff, tireless volunteers, and the financial support of local businesses, churches, individuals, and organizations. The shelter provides a safe haven for women and their children who can begin to plan for their future free of fear. A place to think clearly and to be believed in and listened to by someone who cares.
The most touching thing that a child has ever said to me was a little boy who came into my office, and he told me that he liked it here at the shelter. And when I asked him why, he said it was because he got to sleep in his bed at night instead of having to hide under it. I've heard it said, and I also believe, that shelters are hospitals for the soul.
A lot of times the abuser will accompany the victim to the emergency department, and we separate the victim from the abuser. We try to leave the abuser in the waiting room, and we provide a quiet area for the victim to be evaluated by the physician. If we feel there's a need for the victim to be placed in a safe environment, instead of going home with the abuser. We have a close working relationship with the domestic violence shelter to provide a safe place.
Now, with the intervention of domestic violence shelter, we do have an alternative. It's been a great help for us in law enforcement to have somewhere where we can take a battered person, a sick or injured person, someone who thinks that no one cares or no one's going to be able to help them, and that night deliver them to a place where there's a warm meal, a warm bed, and a friendly smile.
At the domestic violence shelter, we provide 24-hour shelter for battered women and their children. Within that time, we will provide for them food and clothing. Also, while she's here, we will give her individual counseling to help her to begin to break that isolation and to let her know that she's not alone. Also, we have a support group that we call Empowerment that meets here at the shelter every week. Within that group, women become friends with each other and begin to know that they aren't the only one that has gone through this. We also have court advocacy. We will go to court with these women, we will hold their hand, we will stand with them, and also prepare them for what will more than likely happen in court. And sometimes we think is the best is our children's program. And within that program, these children begin to learn that being violent isn't the way of handling their anger. The reason we do this work is for social change, so that our granddaughters will not grow up in a society where domestic violence is such a common occurrence.
But as the night progressed, I thought about it more and more, and I picked up the phone and I called the number. And they had someone from the shelter call me, and I said, I'm not sure whether I really need your services or not, but let me explain my situation. And they reassured me and set up an appointment for me to come in and sent a court advocate with me to get a restraining order, which offered protection for me and my child.
It's important for women to know that they have choices. We'll support them if they want to get out and make changes. A woman can request a domestic violence protective order. There's a pro se law in North Carolina that says a woman can request a domestic violence protective order without having to hire an attorney. A woman can take out criminal warrants. We'll support a woman when she goes through the court process.
The issue of domestic violence is one of great importance to us in the court system. It is one that we see impacting on our families because it affects not only the abuser, affects the mother and affects the child. We see young people who are victims or who witness this kind of abuse are more likely to become abusers in their adult life. So we want to be sure that we stop the cycle now, that we let people know that this is a serious issue, one that we will not tolerate, and one that we will deal with sternly.
Domestic violence has a devastating impact on our society. It affects our women and children, regardless of their age, race, religion, sexual preference, socioeconomic status, regardless of what neighborhood they live in. This national tragedy has a crippling effect on our families, our communities, our businesses. Millions of dollars are lost each year in lost wages and insurance premiums from women being battered.
And when I came here, I mean, they embrace you so that it just fills you up inside. You look around the room and you look at the faces, and the faces are different. But a lot of women have been through a lot, and you don't feel so alone. And then I started coming to the empowerment groups on a regular basis, and I found so much strength in just the whole thing, the sisterhood, the way we treat each other. And they had just being so kind and so understanding to your situation. It was like you didn't have to feel embarrassed about anything that you said. You feel the things that you did was foolish. A lot of things that you took was foolish things that you couldn't tell nobody about. But when you came here, you could just let yourself go.
When I first came here, I felt like I had just died and went to heaven. I was able to sit out on the porch and not have to worry about what are you doing out there, you know, and well, it gave me direction. We went to meetings where we had goals, and I had to make plans what I was going to do. And my first goal was to get a degree in business administration. I did that. And then my next goal was to try and get a home. And I've done that. I closed on my house in a few days. And before I could close on my house, I had to get a divorce. And domestic violence helped me to get my divorce. And now I have a home. I'm a director of a daycare. I don't have to walk on eggshells. And I can be me. And no one can hurt me or my children anymore. I am a survivor.
Now it's time to join our hands. Draw the line to make a stand. Now it's time to join our hands. Draw the line to make a stand.